Is James Father's Rights and Resources hashtag how I got custody. So I've gotten a bunch of this keeps coming up. The fundamental fairness doctrine keeps coming up in consultations that I have with people. I'm going to talk about a few doctrines that have to deal with fairness. So when you let's talk first about the fundamental fairness doctrine. You have a right to notice of a hearing and a right to be heard, and that right to be heard includes a right to have a fair amount of time to prepare a response. You get blindsided. A lot of you guys get blindsided with restraining orders, and uh, and then you have a hearing in a couple weeks, and you get served like a week before that hearing, like you didn't even know there was a restraining order, and then you show up, and then you try to defend yourself, and you didn't really have a chance to get yourself together or gather yourself, and now you got a restraining order that screws your case for the next year or several months. Everybody should know the fundamental fairness doctrine and your right to be heard. If you don't know how to look up case law, you should learn or get an appointment and talk about stuff like this. And it's a fundamental right to, I mean, just think if somebody comes to court and they railroad you and they got all the power and control and money to be able to set you up at court, that's not a fair hearing, which leads into the next fairness doctrine. Um, Generally, the courts are courts of fairness and equity. Now, of course, we're talking about what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be fair and equitable. You know, if I go to court and they award attorney fees for the mother, and I say that's not even fair and equitable. I can't afford my own attorney. How can I afford to pay her? She makes 3 times as much as me. That's not fair, and it's not equitable. It's not equal. It doesn't balance out. Now, those terms are so vague. It's really what anybody thinks fairness and equity is. But some stuff, when you balance the scale or look at it like, look, she's winning way up here. I'm losing way down here. It's not even close. Like you're not even getting it within the range of what you possibly should be ruling in this case. Then there's the appearance of fairness doctrine. When a judge is biased, it's kind of hard to prove because you got to do a motion to a judge to have them recuse themselves, and they kind of have to admit that they're biased. And then there's case law out there that says when a judge even appears to be unfair, the judge has a duty to recuse themselves. Now, this stuff rarely happens because the judges are all biased or got their own skewed perception of reality, bigotry against men, bigotry against somebody who doesn't have an attorney, and all their human presumptions. Think about it. It's just a regular human that's going in there that became a lawyer, probably didn't even learn how to be a lawyer the right way. The odds are. So many incompetent lawyers out there. Then they become a judge, and they just do stuff the way that they've always done it. And in a courtroom, they want to keep order, so they do stuff the way that they want to. And until somebody points out their constitutional rights or the law or whatever. Like the first time when I got 5 days a week visitation, I told the judge that, I have a constitutional right at stake. And the judge said, what constitutional right? She didn't even know about Troxel versus Granville, which at that time was only a year old, but there was still 100 years of constitutional case law in the country. It's Judge Suzanne Barnett, and the last time I checked, she's retired. And then Washington, D.C. gave her some crazy reward or honorary, whatever. See, these people they're in this little club, and they sit there and give each other awards and worship each other all the time. But the appearance of fairness doctrine is that not only must a judge be fair and biased, that they can't even appear to be unfair or biased, and they have a duty to recuse themselves. There's a bunch of case law in federal court, constitutional case law, and each state has got some kind of case law on. This is why it's good for you guys to know case law and know how to look it up. And if you don't, you should probably get an appointment because it's huge to be able to look up case law. Maybe I should just do a video on it that you can buy and download. But if you do a case law research, if you, like, let's say you're in Tennessee Supreme Court or Tennessee Court of Appeals, appearance of fairness doctrine, or judge bias, fairness, or whatever. You'll find some cases in your state, or Minnesota, California, whatever, California Supreme Court, California Court of Appeals, and then do fairness, judge bias. Most states have some kind of doctrine, or they adopt the constitutional doctrine about the appearance of fairness. And when a judge even looks on bias, because the Code of Judicial Conduct, there's a whole bunch of basic stuff everybody should know. You all should know the rules of professional conduct for attorneys. You all should know the Code of Judicial Conduct for judges. You all should know the statutes that govern the factors that the court has to consider dealing with custody. You should know your local and state rules on how to proceed in court. And the Code of Judicial Conduct for judges, if you look at the preamble, it says that, a judicial system is, an important part of society, and it's supposed to be an important part of society. And when the confidence in the system breaks down, or the system is corrupt, then society crumbles and falls apart. So if the judge or an attorney is part of that, and the rules of professional conduct in the preamble to that, it says that, attorneys are guardians of the justice system. And so they have a heavy duty and responsibility to help maintain the integrity of it. But the Code of Judicial Conduct says judges are supposed to maintain the public's confidence in the judicial system. So that's kind of tied in with the appearance of fairness. You're supposed to have confidence in your judicial system, and most people don't have it. And the fact that it still exists is kind of crazy. So a judge must maintain the public's confidence, and that's kind of an appearance thing. But they have to appear to be fair to you in your court case. So if they're not at least appearing to be fair, they have to recuse themselves, and they have a mandatory duty to recuse, and it's not discretionary, it's not optional. So if you want to do a motion to recuse or disqualify a judge, they have a huge standard of not even appearing to be biased or even looking to be biased. Now, I did a couple of disqualifications of my judge because I was actually suing him in federal court, and he goes, "Oh, I could still be objective." That's one of the problems, is that it's usually up to the judge that's available there. But I would always be putting the unfairness on the record, and a lot of people don't realize that about the mere appearance of fairness is a huge standard also. So if you read the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct, judges and attorneys have an extremely high standard of ethics they have to follow. So when you go to court and they say, "Well, you were really disrespectful to the other parent's attorney," I'd be like, "Why do you care about that? What does that got to do with my parental conduct? You're supposed to be following the law and determining my parental conduct. So if I'm talking badly or negatively about an attorney who's lying about me and who's violating their ethical code, that's not blasphemy. You guys aren't Greek gods in the forum of, or the high horse or the high perch that you sit upon. It's not blasphemy to criticize the other side when they lie. This is a court of justice and truth, and there's Civil Rule 11, all these standards for attorneys, rules of professional conduct. And this attorney has an extremely high standard of ethical conduct that they have to follow. And if I merely criticize them, you're saying that is blasphemy? They're not even coming halfway close to the high ethical standard. They're not even coming halfway close to the ethical standard of normal, regular human beings with a conscience. So if they trip out on you, then they're being, plus those guys are falsely accusing me and talking crazy about me of being a child abuser and all this other stuff. And you're going to get mad at me because I'm criticizing their conduct? Plus that has nothing to do with the parenting that you have to rule upon and my ability to parent.
So